Get out of here. Get the hell out of here.
I will not. I will not, because episode 304 is just a few moments away, setting up right now. Just going live, getting everything ready. Boy, it's another day for Facebook in the fire, huh? Or as they say, in the barrel. Hell of a week for Facebook. 2 weeks, 3 weeks? I literally decided not to bring Tech Talk Today back today, just because all the news is about Facebook, and I can't even anymore. Can't even anymore with this Facebook stuff. But I thought maybe we'd talk about it for a moment, just because I'm not talking about anywhere else. This is my warm-up time with just you guys. So it seems like if I'm going to talk about it, this is where I got to do it, because this doesn't count, right? All right, so we've all agreed this doesn't count? Okay, good. All right, good. All right, then. Let me tweak a few things. We'll go over the headlines, including some Zuckerberg stuff, but I'll try to find some other stuff in there for you, too. Okay. So let's go through some of the headlines I'm seeing today. It looks like okay. Before we go to Facebook, Uber has acquired a bike-sharing startup called Jump. They have reportedly paid $200 million. Jump will continue running independently under Uber, which was speculated last week and has been confirmed by the company today. Now, let's see. Keeping along with my pledge to stay out of Facebook, Leap. Yeah, this one I might actually cover in a show. Leap Motion has been released. Project North Star, which is a low-cost open-source AR headset. Hey-o! I'm liking the open-source part of that. It's a whole dev kit with a huge display and 120 frames per second with robust hand tracking, they say. Robust hand tracking. Robust, guys. HP? That's why the warm-up. HP debuts. See how that happens? HP debuts a Chromebook. They call it the Chromebook X2 with a detachable keyboard cover and a stylus. It's got a 12.3 IPS-inch display, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 32 gigabits of storage, and a 13-megapixel camera. It comes out in June, starting at $599 to compete with iPad Pro. That's, and speaking of iPad Pro, Apple has debuted product Red iPhone 8 and 8 Plus in 64 gigabyte and 256 gigabyte, available right now in select countries. No, I'm sorry, available tomorrow in select countries. Blockchain's key promise of no need for trusted parties in tech is largely irrelevant, says this person. Who is this person? K. Stinchukombi? Okay. All right. PayPal is partnering with small U.S. banks to offer traditional banking services like debit cards, direct deposits, and FDIC insurance. What? What is that about? Anyways, that's all fascinating and all well and good. But I wanted to share something else with you. Then we'll get to the Zuck stuff. We'll do the Zuck stuff. I just, we got to build up to that. You know what I mean? You understand, right? You got to build up to that. You can't just go all Zuck right at the beginning of a stream. You're just going to ruin stuff. So anyway, since we can't go all Zuck, I wanted to play a video for you here of IBM, about IBM, I should say, from 1985, the Computer Chronicles. I'll be playing a select portion of this for you in a future episode of Coda Radio. So I'm going to play you a bit that won't make it in the show, but it's fascinating because it's a demo of old computer stuff, old computer hardware and software, and I just think it's particularly good for the visual aspect of it, and since this is a live stream, this seems like the appropriate place to do it. So that's right, I forgot, this doesn't really have like a traditional sweet spot. Let me get you here in the sweet spot. Here you go. This is Gary Kidall, rest in peace, or Kidall. Rest in peace, Gary. And he is interviewing this individual. We'll play this here while I continue to set up the show, and then we'll come back with the Zuck news.
Also brought into the market the operating system called TopView, which is, again, a mini-computer style attempt to... Now, Tom, what is TopView? Can you show us what's going on here?
Well, TopView is an operating environment that IBM has introduced, and I think they saw the need for providing a system which had multitasking, windowing, and data interchange capability, because when machines moved to the generation of the XT and the AT, they had quite a bit bit of power, and a single-threaded, single-tasking operating system was not sufficient to be able to capitalize on the power of that particular machine.
Can you show us what, how TopView works?
Okay, this is the sign-on message for TopView, and when we execute TopView, what we see here is that we have the ability to select an application for execution. In this case, I might start by executing WordStar, so we can run a standard PC-DOS type of application. Now, at this point, we're running WordStar. It looks as if we're running under DOS, but if we want to, we can cycle back into the TopView top menu, and from that menu be able to select another program for execution. I'll select another program here, their DOS services program. Now here's where it has a little bit of an impact on the ISVs. That is that at this point, WordStar is what we call suspended. It's not able to execute because that program is not what's called a well-behaved application.
Okay, so certain applications like WordStar might have to be modified to really take all advantage of the TopView multitasking.
That is correct. You see, the ISVs will be impacted in that if they have an application that goes direct to the video map, that program cannot run shared or in a background mode while something else is running, because it would then go directly to the screen. So that version of WordStar must be modified so that it would go to a video display buffer.
Okay, so you think there's going to be some, is there a time element involved, say, that before these applications will really...
That's correct. I think we've seen a lot of interest from ISVs in pairing applications that are well-behaved so they can run in TopView, and in fact applications that become TopView aware, that can take advantage of data interchange, copy, cut, and paste through a filter mechanism. The underlying TopView itself is a very powerful mechanism. I think that one thing that people get distracted with in TopView at times is that its user interface is often compared to the graphic
So this is a character-oriented window. Now, Norm, how do you see that the Macintosh influence with the graphics and so forth in the Windows has been very well accepted? Is this going to be a detriment to TopView to not have that capability?
I don't know that it'll be a detriment to TopView, but certainly the Macintosh environment, I think, is one that first-time users very quickly adapt to. And it's very possible that IBM could add graphics capability to this in the future. But
is this just sort of a safe step, maybe?
I think this is a very strategic product from IBM that you'll see TopView around for many years to come.
Okay.
TopView has been controversial, and some people are critical of it. What's the downside? What's the rap on TopView besides the lack of graphics and icons?
Well, I think there's an impact on ISVs. You have to wait until applications, many of them are modified to run in the TopView environment. And in fact, if you really want to take advantage of TopView capabilities, you have to become TopView specific. Now, to an ISV, that means as soon as they write a TopView specific application, their end user has to have an IBM PC and have to have purchased TopView before they can run that application. I think that's where the reluctance is coming from ISVs.
It could also be that it looks like that the TopView is going to take does take a lot of memory, and so that the actual computer system that you're working with is not just, say, a PC or a PC Junior, but it's going to have to be a fully loaded AT.
That's correct. It's really aimed at the high capability machine, and I'm talking about 0.5 megabyte with a hard disk. I don't think there'd be much point in running on a floppy-based system or with any less than.
So the point is that an independent software vendor would look at, say, the size of the customer base to begin with, and maybe look at that and say, well, it's not really very big at this point, and we have to see that grow to some extent. It's a phenomenon that occurs, of course, in the whole industry over and over.
Norm, you said this is an important strategic product for IBM. Are you suggesting you don't think the negatives are really that important and that this is a strong product?
Well, I think when I say it's a strategic product, I think it's one that IBM is going to put its resources behind, both marketing and developmental. And I think you'll see the product evolve over time. If there are shortcomings at this point in time, IBM's been known to step up to product shortcomings in the past. Last year we saw an example of that.
Does this also represent bringing software in-house?
I think you'll see IBM offer more and more IBM-developed programs to the marketplace.
So what effect does this have on the software vendors themselves? Are there going to be a lot of competition from IBM?
Well, they will definitely have software competition from IBM. IBM has stated that they plan to capture a significant market share.
Speaking of competition, we're going to take a look at a competitive product for TopView in just a moment. We'll also meet Stuart Alsop. He's publisher of a new newsletter called The Insider's Guide to the PC Industry. So stay with us.
All right, so you get it. I'll play a little bit more, just like 30 seconds while you finish chewing.
With us now is Stuart Alsop. Stuart was formerly the editor of InfoWorld. He now publishes the PC Letter. Gary?
Stuart, we've all seen the dominance that IBM took in the hardware industry. And at the time, they were buying, let's say, I guess, third-party software. Now, they've also announced recently a whole line of software products. Are we going to see the same kind of attempt to take over the software industry?
Well, certainly they want to try to take over the software industry. That's part of their announced strategy. But recent reports indicate that the software isn't selling. And the real point with software is that that's what provides the value to the user.
Oh.
And unless it does provide value, the user won't buy it.
What is the analysis of why it's not selling?
The software that's been provided in the business productivity series, I believe they're called, in the personal decision series, aren't competitive with what's currently being offered from Lotus Development and other application software companies.
You mean they're just not as
Yes.
good, feature-wise?
Just not as good. They're not as easy to use and not as powerful.
Now, speaking of competitive products, Gary, your company, in fact, has a TopView type multitasking system. Why don't you give me a brief introduction?
We've been interested in the multitasking area for a long, long time. And Tom did quite a bit of the work in that area. And now that IBM has put the stamp of approval on multitasking, then, of course, we get a lot of interest in concurrent DOS.
Man.
So, Tom, could you introduce it and see what's going on?
Okay, the product I'll demonstrate here is called Concurrent PC-DOS. It is a DOS-compatible operating system that provides the ability of running multiple concurrent DOS applications. On the screen right now, what I have is four separate windows, and we see 3 here outlined in different colors. The purpose for Windows is that it makes the user interface much easier to understand. We can see here that we have 3 distinct different applications. Here we see part of a directory in one screen. By hitting a single keystroke, I can move to a second screen, a third screen, and finally down to a screen in which I have loaded WordStar. So here we have WordStar executing, and we could be running that concurrently with other applications. And we can cycle through the window manager to see those other applications.
So these are like 4 different computer systems that are in the same place.
That's correct. So while that screen is still scrolling, I can move to another screen, do another operation, another directory or something perhaps, and finally moving to another screen, and here perform yet another operation.
I think the important issue is here that both TopView and concurrent DOS are really headed toward another level of small computer users.
A whole nother level. So anyways, I'm going to pull a few bits from the parts that you didn't see for a future episode when it is appropriate to do so. I don't really have any immediate plans to do that. All right, why don't we continue on? Oh no, we can't. I was just, I was totally looking forward to talking about Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, but looks like Mr. Dominic is joining now. So dang it, I just plumb run out of time. I can't get to it.
Just got Zuckerberg.
I was so looking forward to it too. You know how much I love covering Facebook. It's a passion of mine. It's a passion. Now, what mic are we doing? The mic. We're doing the mic dance again because you sound roomy. Oh, hi there. No, that's better. And all of a sudden, just got a lot better. Oh, I mean, like it went from like, oh yeah, oh. I'm sorry. What? Okay. I have numbers that are supposed to be zeros that are not zeros. So let me make them zeros because damn it, I'm going to make it so actually that's supposed to be negative infinity, but this one is supposed to be totes. Come on, you can do it. 0. Boom.
I'm gonna grab my tea.
Oh, I'm having a little tea myself, although it's iced tea, so not quite the same. All right, you go grab your quote unquote tea, right, chat room, right, his quote unquote tea, right?
I don't believe you.
Right. No, I just know another podcaster. He says, I'm going to go get my tea, and he's really going to get baked before the show. So whenever somebody says I'm going to go get my tea, I always think, I wonder what they really mean, because now I know sometimes when somebody says that, they don't actually mean what I think they mean. Okay. There we go. Boy, I got all the, oh yeah, you know what I could do? Is I could load up a couple of show links here. Maybe I'll do that while he gets his quote-unquote tea. Coder.show, you guys visiting the new... Oh, man. Oh, yeah, that's right. Man, I had this great online Markdown editor because it was so simple. Nothing fancy, really basic, and it's gone. It's dead. So sad. And I forgot to look for my replacement before the show. Fuck. So my very, very favorite, very simple, dead simple, easy, quick Markdown preview thing, online Markdown editor, went offline this last week. So, that's what happens when we use these damn fancy cloud services. No, let's see here. Where's Mr. Dominic? There we go. Select here. Okay. Say something for me. I'm going to check your level.
Hello, hello, hello.
A very dour Mr. Dominic is what it seems is what it is. You're just low.
Yeah, I think I'm tired, so I'm just need to project.
Well, let me tell you. I have one of those family spring break trips, you know, where like dad's like going crazy and nothing's going right. We actually had to essentially evacuate the town we were staying in. I was just going to be getting back late last night, but I got back Saturday, because of 75-mile-per-hour winds that were hitting the coast. So that was quite the spring break. All right, darling, are you ready, or should we hit the proverbial road?
The old record,
as the kids say. All right, I'll do that. Actually, hitting record's a great idea. This is how you can tell Mike's a pro, ladies and gentlemen. We years of broadcasting have taught us to hit the record button. All right, record has been hit.
And the mute button.
yeah, that too. I don't have any links to load, so this is. I guess I could get our sponsors. I guess I could do that. I'll have to get the sponsors loaded because you know what? I feel naked without my like browser full of tabs. I just, I'm really just a tab pusher. I just get on the air and I just talk about my tabs. Okay, that's not totally true, but it kind of feels like that right now. And Linux Academy. linuxacademy.com/coders. Well, hey, everybody listening, just do us a solid and go to linuxacademy.com/coders right now, just real quick, so that way we, can just give a little thanks to Chris and Mike for doing the show, and you'll talk to all Academy. That's as high as I can go. linuxacademy.com/coders. All right, I got my tea. You got your tea. Let's see. All right. You get your yawns out. There's no yawning in podcasting, Mr. Dominic.
I know.
No yawning in podcasting. Hold on. I'm going to do something so I can sync up clips later on. So stand by for an obnoxious bell just really quick so I can find that. Where is my obnoxious bell? I need something. Yeah, here we go. All right, that should be pretty easy to find in the audio waveform. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Please feel free to bang suggest as the show goes along. It's Coder Radio 304, and it begins in a 3. In a 2. Let me get all that out of the way, too. Oh, one more thing to open. Really, I got this. I just want to have all the things ready for some reason today. Sometimes I can do this shit during the show, and sometimes I just feel like I got to do it all right beforehand. All right, here we go. Coder Radio 304, in a 3, in a 2. This is Coder Radio, episode 304 for April 9th, 2018. Everyone, and welcome to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and its related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. Why, my name is Chris. Thank you so much for asking. But it's not about me. No, it's about our host, who's hunkered down in Florida for a special episode. Hello, Mike.
Misa here.
You made it? I thought for sure Mike had you locked up somewhere because we had a whole Slack thread about locking you back into a closet. I distinctly remember that you were locked in a closet just 5 minutes ago. I don't know how you do it, Jar Jar.
Misa can't be contained.
Well,
Misa
Mr.
like Miley Cyrus twerking. Oh.
Well, but Mr. Jar Jar, you're going to have to step aside because we have a special episode of the Coder Radio program this week. I've got no links. I got no tabs. I got no hoopla. I got no feedback. I got no tools, no book picks. Got nothing. I got nothing because it's sort of an introspective episode this week, and we wanted to kind of clear the decks and just sort of air it out and just kind of let happen what happened. And so Mike and I are just going to sit here quietly and just do some work today, and you guys can. Oh wait, no, okay. Would that be funny if we just did it?
Amazing, actually. Just put like a camera. You're editing some video. While some code.
It's just basically us clicking and typing the whole time, and like every now and then one of us like, oh, jeez, this stupid thing,
I sort of think we should do that next week.
I know. After this week's episode, we may need to. I guess in some ways, if you're going to give it one subject this week, it's really kind of about failure, like hard lessons learned, and really sort of actualizing and realizing failure, and some of the personal and business costs that you've experienced from some real failures that have happened to you from a little while ago. And it's why now? Because I think what we're going to talk about happened a little while ago, right?
Yeah, this happened in 2014, actually.
Yeah.
And the reason why now is, I listen to a lot of tech podcasts, and over the last few months, a lot of folks seem to be doing victory laps where they talk in somewhat vapid terms about like how they do what they do, which is fine, but I find that like deeply not helpful.
Yeah, I've noticed it too. It's like there's several new series of podcasts that have launched looking at entrepreneurs or things like that are
right.
Yeah,
right. And I am of the opinion that actually like failure is a better teacher than success. Sort of because failure, success for one thing is not easy to define, right? While failure is much, much, much easier to define.
Yeah, fair enough.
Additionally, I don't think we would all agree on what success actually is, other than like the materialistic trappings of it. And frankly, and you can just like Google around, open your Overcast or whatever podcast text section. Many of these come off as a little, I want to say, unrealistic and preachy. An example of a line of reasoning I often see is like, company X was successful. It's the Steve Jobs with Michael Fassbender version of the truth, right? It is very edited and very inaccurate.
Yeah.
Like it highlights. I'll give you just like a vague example. Most of them follow a certain theme, right? We did something, then we just had like a gut, man, Chris, like I woke up and the spirit of the Buddha came into me, or some nonsense like that. And then people start talking about like, oh, like HubSpot, like that's not, HubSpot is doing this, right? And they talk about like their weird principles like heart and all that kind of stuff. Now they're a very big public company now, so I think it's okay to tease them a little bit. But like it's often not true in the case of HubSpot. If you actually read Dan Lyon's books, that's not true.
Yeah, it's our story is the pitch.
Right.
This is our story. This is who we are. Come meet us. But it is exactly that. It's a story. It's a narrative, which is why like the Steve Jobs goes to India, trips on LSD, and comes back and invents the mouse, which is not true at all. I'm just saying that's the narrative gets set, and then people look for stories that reinforce that, and it does sort of create this unrealistic version of what it takes to be successful.
Yeah, and I actually think it's quite bad, though, right? If you say things like we're successful because we have heart, or like, just like these weird, super vapid, kind of soft Mickey Mouse sounding things, you're telling people who are either younger than you, which I know our audience definitely has a lot of like college kids, right? Or who like haven't been quite as fortunate as you, that it's necessarily like a qualitative judgment, right? And considering I've done both, right? I want to focus less on, the success side of things. Not that I'm like wildly successful, but like I do okay, right? Chris does okay. Me and Chris are in the same sinking boat. I want to talk about like a time I actually straight up failed, right? Like complete failure. And I think there are more concrete lessons, and we can go down a list I have here, but it worries me how mythologized this, I don't even know what to say, like pseudo-spiritual crap is becoming. Because you're setting, like particularly the podcasts and some of the publications that are focusing on startups now are setting these expectations of how business tends to work that are just completely unrealistic for the vast majority of people, right?
I agree. And but I'm not honing in on the damage that you think it creates. Because what it seems to me, it's like exaggerating small details into these larger picture pieces that explain a person in 4 or 5 concrete moments in their life that help you.
Let me give you a concrete example of the damage it creates.
Okay.
In the pre-show, you wanted to talk about Zuckerberg before I came on, right?
Yeah, well, jokingly.
Right. So
I actually didn't want to.
No one does. If I have to see that guy's face again, I seriously write about something else.
Yeah, I know,
Insert
right?
Tech blog here.
God.
There is an epidemic, and you can actually look this up, a statistical epidemic of teenage depression and suicide and things like that, which is quite awful, right? Because of Facebook. And the thing that's happening is these teenagers are looking at their Facebook friends, and their Facebook friends are giving them, frankly, a bullshit curated version of their life, and they're feeling inadequate or upset. This is the business equivalent. What I see these other people doing on their podcast is the business equivalent of that. And I get why being positive might be a better marketing move, right? I understand that particularly in the area of development or being a dev shop or being a consultancy, differentiation is almost impossible to have. So anything you can claim as a differentiator, you want to do that. I understand all of that, right? And I can't claim that I don't do any of this either, right? We just published a thing called Code Values at the Mad Botter. So I am not necessarily saying I haven't done any of this ever.
It's positioning, right? Isn't that an important part of trying to establish a brand?
Yeah. So I think it's almost like a little bit of this kind of thing is necessary, is how I feel.
Okay.
But I've heard a few where I actually know the truth, and just the distance between reality and what people are promoting is pretty stark. And my fear, just to actually answer your question, is that we're going to have a bunch of very young entrepreneurs try to do things, and particularly because the developer mindset tends to be prone to not the best behavior, although that pool is widening. Different types of people are becoming developers now. I think we're going to have young people in particular, or people who've been in quote-unquote straight jobs and want to try something on their own, who have wildly different expectations compared to reality, and become very hurt or very disillusioned very fast.
Yes. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I have experienced the same thing you have, where I see the narrative around something versus knowing the behind the scenes of how it actually went down. And the two are very, very, very distant. And there's people, though, that don't know that see that and go, oh, so that's how you do it. And they try and they fail. And I don't really think what the problem is, we don't really, as how to put this? See, the issue is when you're trying to get somewhere new, you're trying to aspire, and you look at the people that may be in the position or whatever the case may be, and you think you see their formula. I think it's human nature to try to reproduce it a little bit. I think it's sort of because we're seeking out wisdom, we think we found it, and it's a real easy trap for people to fall into. The onus, while it seems like it should be on that new student or that aspiring entrepreneur to figure out the snake oil salesmen from the people that are putting out real work, you would think that works, but my hard experience shows me it does not. It's just simply a process of people are desperately seeking out information, and if you don't have the full context of the thing you're trying to learn, you don't know what's bogus, you don't know what's not true, you don't know all of the background. And it's easy to buy this, eat this stuff up, and think, oh, okay, that must be true. That must be how it works because look where they are. Look where they are. This must be true. That explains it. And so I think it's really easy to fall prey to. The human mind, I think, is particularly engineered to be scammed by that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think I completely agree.
Do you feel like that happened to you to a degree?
Yeah, so this is going to be part of it, right? Do I feel it happened to me? I mean, I think anyone who's starting a business and is very young, like I was, is going to look for sources and teachers. I would say that no, but I'd argue that this kind of myth-making wasn't as prevalent, or at least not. Either I was unaware of it. One big thing that's different now is corporate blogs and podcasts are very big now, right? A lot of the blogs I'm thinking of, and the podcasts in particular I'm thinking of, are actually like marketing operations for like shops and consultancies and things like that, right? And I'm sure Chris could name 100 of them off the top of his head, but they're not the traditional, JB or I don't even know if 5x5 is still around, but right, not the traditional networks. Is it fair to call them marketing content? Is that?
Yeah, it's
none of they're bad. I enjoy many of them. This is not like a value judgment.
But the way to define them is they are generally almost completely financed by the marketing budget in some capacity. Sometimes it's an in-house production. Sometimes they outsource to like a firm that does these for a bunch of different companies, and they are becoming a lot more prevalent. Some large names are.
Yeah, and this is something I've considered doing too, right? And the idea is to position your firm as an expert, right? So it's the same reason you would have a blog.
Exactly.
I used to do the YouTube videos on Docker. So I guess the answer to that question is no, but I will say one thing is very different, or at least it's different in my perception. There wasn't the weird vying to be the next Steve Jobs in 2008. And I don't know why people want to do that. I guess I do know why, but like I literally saw a dude dressed like Steve Jobs. This must happen like every 6 months now, at every tech conference. It's like
you got to come over to the West Coast, my friend.
Why? How bad is it?
I've just seen it. I've seen it in California every time I've gone to California. So that's a pretty high hit rate.
That's to me, some of this stuff is just so crazy that I figured we could talk about it because I don't know, I can't be the only psycho in this business, right? But
you look at I look at like your Mark Zuckerberg's, your Elon Musk's, your Jeff Bezos. These are names that all come to mind now. They're like celebrity CEOs, which I think is also a Steve Jobs phenomenon. I might be wrong on that, but this whole tech,
that's exactly yeah.
And I think it's I don't know. To me, it seems like I've always hated it because, in a large company that's made up of thousands of people like that, not everything is all on one woman or one man's shoulders. They have chiefs that make decisions, and they have people underneath them that make decisions, and then they have workers underneath them that are actually executing the actual work, and they're doing their own implementations of it. It's so complicated, and I've always felt like this culture of CEO celebrity that we've been brewing now for years has been more about pushing a product and selling someone as a visionary, like Jeff Bezos with his plan to go out into space, right? Same with Elon with the electric cars and SpaceX, and Tim Cook with his focus on health and taking care of humanity and privacy. Like they're all positioning themselves as like these icons for these ideals, and then they come out on stage and everybody claps like crazy, and they're really just a chief salesman. Internally they're doing things, but I don't really fully understand the value it presents because it's not reflective of what a business is actually like, what a company's actually like. It's a complete and total narrative, and we all just accept it and buy it, and we're all like, yeah, okay. All right, cool. Tim Cook just said this on MSNBC over the weekend. Did you hear what Tim Cook said? Yeah, as if Tim Cook came up with that entire thing all on his own. So I do definitely agree that this is an issue, but I actually think it may inspire more people to get into the business than it does drive people away, because people want to be Elon Musk. They want to be Steve Jobs. They want to have those headlines. They want to be a celebrity because of their great business. I actually think, I don't know if it inspires the right people, but I think it inspires more people to get in.
So would you say, see, I don't mind, in fact, I enjoy when Tim Cook goes on MSNBC or CNBC, whichever it was, and slaps around Mark Zuckerberg. I think that's great. We should do more of that, please. But do you think it's bad? See, I wouldn't want to go on the limb of saying, like, I don't begrudge, like, the big CEOs their fame. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I just think they should maybe be a little more...
I think it's phony. I think it's phony is what it is.
Right. I don't like the dishonesty aspect of it, or what I perceive to be dishonesty.
It's a dog and pony show that they're putting on for us. And I feel like it's one of those things where they're like, well, it'd be too hard for everybody to understand that we have all these departments. So we'll just pretend like it's all the CEO that makes all these decisions. He's a king. He's the emperor. And every day we bring him a list of all the things that need to be decided in the company. And he sits down and makes a decision on every single line item. It's just such crap. But we all pretend like okay, that's how it is. And I don't know. I could see how it definitely misleads. When you combine that with these hype stories, well, we need to tell our story. We have to tell our story around this product. We got to make sure we tell the pros what the story is for the Mac Pro. Everybody needs to understand that.
Well, there's
that kind
a
of
darker
crap.
side too, right?
Yeah.
Theranos, like seriously, there's an actual dark side to the whole myth-making thing.
What do you think it is?
I think it's Theranos, right? I think the myth becomes.
Oh, I see. So you think that then they're like chasing their own demon that they've created in a sense, like they now they have to live up to this myth?
Well, you hear about that all the time, right? In different forms, like overhyped marketing. Remember that stupid juice machine that was like?
Oh man, yeah.
Right? Like it seems to be happening more and more as we progress, which is bad. But yeah, I think I don't know what to say, right? Like I think unrealistic expectations are bad in almost everything, just like in life. But particularly bad if you're a business owner, right? Because if you have unrealistic expectations to investors or customers, eventually, that is going to catch up with you, right? You're just not going to be able to pull that off forever.
I completely agree with that. I do.
And if you have unrealistic expectations for yourself, well, that's just like not psychologically healthy.
You are doomed to failure. Yeah.
Right.
All
You're
right.
always going to be unhappy. So yeah, we should.
Let's pause there. I want to ask you about what happened in 2014 and get that side of it, figure out where all this is coming from. So let's mention DigitalOcean. Now, DigitalOcean is simplicity at scale. They have a cloud platform that you can spin up on in seconds and get great machines that you can deploy across 12 data centers all around the world. Everything is based on SSD drive, so it's rocking fast. The disk I/O is great. And then they have 40 gigabit connections coming into the hypervisors, so your network I/O is fantastic. They have network level firewalls, so you can block traffic at DigitalOcean's network level, so that stuff never even hits your machine. They have private networking that doesn't count against your transfer rate, so you can have a front-end caching box with back-end web servers or back-end databases or backup servers themselves. Predictable, easy to understand pricing, and the entire thing is built around developers. An easy-to-use control panel and an API that lets you spend a lot more time getting work done and less time managing your DigitalOcean infrastructure. And here's a great deal. If you go to do.co/coder, do.co/coder, no S, you can get a $100 60-day credit. When you create a new account, you can play around for $100 worth of DigitalOcean rigs. Now that's something, because my more than enough system that I never tap out, because I'm just doing like multiple video streams, audio stream conversions, and running chat rooms and bots and things like that. Nothing major. 3 cents an hour. 3 cents an hour for that thing. So a $100 credit, you could try out some of their massive CPU optimized systems with the latest Intel Xeon processors. You could try out their flexible droplets where you can mix and match disk or CPU or RAM. It's a really flexible system with great documentation, tutorials for days. Ooh, how to use duplicity with GBG to back up data to DigitalOcean Spaces. Well, isn't that nice? Yeah, DigitalOcean Spaces is another great feature of DigitalOcean. S3 standard, easy-to-use spaces. You could use it connected to your droplet, or just spin up a URL space and drop some files on there and send somebody a link, and then you can have it set to self-destruct even. It's just great for that. They also have block storage, which you can attach to a rig, and it just shows up as a device. I love all of that. Pre-built applications, global availability, optimized compute types, and team support. There's so much to enjoy. And then there's tons of good community code built around it. do.co/coder. Go there to sign up and get a 100-day trial. DigitalOcean.com. I've been using it for years. Go see why. do.co/coder. All right, Mr. Dominic. So kind of walk us through what did happen in 2014. We were doing the show then, right? Yes, we were.
Yeah, we were. We started the show in 12.
So, yeah. Okay.
So few things that happened before, right? One, I am intentionally focusing on the negative. Right?
Yeah.
My intent is not to actively discourage people or anything, but this is just more of a balance thing, right?
I agree. I think it's good to have that.
Right. So I don't want to give an impression that's overly negative.
Yeah,
is
okay.
why I'm saying.
Disclaimer.
I started up disclaimer. This is my disclaimer. And again, I also did many things correctly, but, you know, we're going to focus on the things I did wrong. 2008, I started up fine, right? Really caught the beginning of the iOS SDK, was one of 3, like, dev shops, in quotes, doing iOS in New Jersey, which was great. I was a one-man band for a while, occasionally had a person, all that kind of good stuff. And see, something I didn't... Things were going well. I mean, we all remember 2008. Well, maybe all of us don't. But if you were an iOS developer in 2008, 2009, 2010, really all the way up to like 2013, it was things were pretty good, right? Contracts were coming at you faster than you can do, and because it was so rare, there was a lot of leeway on everything. So, you know, I'm getting bigger, right? And I decide that it might not be the worst idea to do a little bit of expansion over the years, right? So we fast forward, add a little bit of Android, a little bit of Rails. You know, we got kind of more of a stack thing going on.
And I assume you're probably bringing on some people too to help.
Bringing on some people, right? Bringing on some people. Got offices now. I don't want to say that like multi-year period was perfect. And of course, like everybody else in his first year in business, I screwed up my taxes, right? And I didn't realize how high taxes were. So like I made that mistake, but then you just pay it and you're fine. Yeah, you know, dumb stuff, right? Like forgetting, you know, nothing major. So we fast forward into 2014. I think we're roughly 14 people. And we have a pretty heavy division between what I would consider customer service and devs. So I think it's almost a half and half, actually. I think at one point it was 7 and 7. So we had gotten there by basically making the initial mistake. My early clients were what, and actually I do have a book recommendation, I just didn't link it. If you've ever read, have you read it, Chris? Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm?
I think I've heard of it, but I have not read it.
Okay. He talks about different kind of like market personas you can think about, and this is my first blunder. This is what starts everything off a bad road. I failed to realize that the reason I was successful originally was because I was dealing with what Geoffrey Moore calls the visionary. One second. Who, that would be my kid trying to pull out the cable, sorry.
I love it. For me, it's either kids or a dog these days. The dog comes
it was
busting.
a kid and a dog, so I was like, whoa.
I thought I heard some pup noises in there.
Yeah, I was like, okay, sorry about that. And the visionaries are interesting, right? Because they want to take risk, and for our purposes, from a technology perspective, they want to be on the bleeding edge, which is great, right? Because it means a couple things. It means, one, they might be willing to pay more. Although another mistake was I was way undercharging. And they tend to be very forgiving on things like business processes and kind of the overhead of dealing with other groups of people, which I'm going to get into. They started to go away. And at the same time, prices started rapidly, or I perceive it, this is another mistake, the market I was in, the prices seemed to be rapidly falling, because now we're in 2014, and there's just like tons of template apps, right? There's tons of offshore competition.
Yep.
And
I remember talking a lot about that.
Remember how I was just desperately scrambling to find a good cross-platform solution purely to cut costs.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you think about it, if I have a guy who does iOS, a guy who does Android, you know, someone who does Rails, all these people have to be paid, and they're all very specialized. So I didn't recognize this, right? You got to remember, I'm talking now at 4 years of hindsight. The first sign was we started getting sort of different customers. These weren't really enthusiastic people, because as the market matured, more, for lack of a better term, boring companies were wanting mobile apps now, right? And for them it was new, but they have, I mean, very different requirements if you think about servicing that kind of customer. Let me give you kind of the classics example. For years, it was sufficient for me just to like email people, right? And I actually find that email is one of the most effective ways to communicate with customers because you have something that you can go back to and say, well, I thought you meant this.
100%.
Where I got sucked into the world of like GoToMeeting, right?
Yeah.
And while I understand that a lot of businesses just like rely on meetings, I personally find it a bad way to communicate information. And I also found that what would happen is you'd have, I mean, there's one terrible case where I had 14 people in one meeting, and it was like that old kids game of telephone, right? We all knew we agreed to something. No one knew what it was.
Oh, that's so
right?
stressful.
And that led to more conflicts. So I incorrectly, this is mistake number 2, decided to hire all these customer service people, which almost doubled us in size pretty fast. Because one, my thinking was, because they're relatively affordable compared to developers, right? And it was that they could just absorb the slack in this process. What I didn't understand, and I've been thinking about this for years, and it took me up until like really this year to figure this out. I accidentally crossed from the tech enthusiast market, right, from the people who want the newest technology, into a more pragmatic market.
Oh, yes. Where they place a
One
totally
thing
different value on this stuff.
Right. But I didn't change my pricing. So one reason that you will find that like dev shops in general, even the ones who claim that they like to work with entrepreneurs, but only work with like VC-funded entrepreneurs or people who are really going to bet the farm, or indeed they prefer to work with big companies, is it is expensive to service accounts like that.
Yeah.
Which means you just have to charge a lot more. And when I say I wasn't charging enough, I think we had people just coming in at like $60 an hour at the time.
Yeah.
So it was like grossly under the market.
Yeah. And this is a totally different kind of customer. So it's a more costly customer. So
and we did not bill. Oh, this is the other key. We didn't bill project management time at all.
I kind of remember our discussions back then. It's like, well, you even at some points tried, but they like would look at you like you're ridiculous. You want us to? That's your job. Why would we pay for? Yeah, I mean.
Well, and the answer was it is right, but in that market you need to be charging more like $150 an hour, and then you can afford to do that effectively. The other really dumb thing I did was I structured my, and you're gonna hate this because I know you do ad sales. I structured my salespeople's commissions such that they got paid for closing the sale, regardless of what happened to the contract. So what ended up happening, and I'm sure you can figure this out, the sales guys were always incentivized to basically say whatever the hell they needed to say to close the deal.
Yeah.
And they would get paid a full commission, even if we lost money on the project.
Right. Yep. Yeah, because they did their job. You didn't retain it, but they did. They closed the sale.
See, that's an interesting. I'm surprised you didn't throw up on that, because in my mind, I realize what I would do today is you actually should be paid on retention, and here's why. Because what we do was custom, it still is. We had a really nasty thing that kept happening where sales reps would intentionally avoid things that might scare the client, but were material to figure. And remember, we were fixed bid at the time too, right? But we were material to what it would actually cost us to do the job.
I actually am. It does bother me. I'm just not surprised in the least, having seen it happen. That is exactly the way it works. And it's like that through the entire company. It's not just the salespeople. They always go to where their incentives are. So one thing I saw, because I watched a company, I benefited a lot when before I became an independent contractor. I worked for a company as an employee where I had medical benefits, and they were doing all of the overhead, including experimenting with bringing on salespeople. So I watched them go from no salespeople to a couple of salespeople, and watched a couple of people leave and a couple of people come on board. And that same thing happened where the salesperson was really They weren't like trying to scam anybody. They were just very, very much aligned to what their incentive was. And so they would say something because they didn't know technically what was or wasn't possible. They would say, yeah, we could do that. No problem. Yeah, we can do that. And then it would come back to us and we're like, holy shit, what did he commit us to? We can't do that. That would take X, and back and forth. But of course, now the customer's been sold on it, and it's a good gig, and et cetera, et cetera. So what I saw them sort of transform to was some sort of like initial closing deal incentive, and then a percentage over a period of time when that customer is retained. And I remember a lot of people didn't like that outside the sales area because essentially they're taking a spiff off of off of every client that you have for doing nothing, really, after a while, is how people saw it. I don't, anyways, I just know, I don't know if that was the solution, that sort of retainer incentive
That's really
percentage.
interesting.
But that's what they were attempting at the time when I wrapped up. Yeah.
Yeah, a solution I thought of but never ended up implementing because we ended up just not having any more salespeople was you would be paid, like you said, a small commission for closing the initial sale, but your commissions would be reevaluated every quarter based on how many of your projects hit their target for profitability, which salespeople did not like, right? That was very unpopular. And you can imagine what I think of software salespeople.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's yeah. I mean, that's actually another. I didn't even have this on the list, but one thing that also changed was it became very hard to get paid for discoveries in 2014. And the reason for that, and this was just a pure market competition thing, the bigger shops or shops of rough my size were just charging a lot more, so they kind of baked that into their structure, right? And the offshore shops just like didn't do discoveries. They
Yeah.
just,
Oh, no. Why bother?
yeah. Why bother? So we ended up having like a very expensive sales process relative to the size of the deals.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, that is particularly challenging. Still kind of challenging to today, I would imagine, actually, that particular aspect.
Yeah, that's still super challenging.
Well, so I have a couple more questions for you because a lot of what I've heard, which is interesting because of our preamble where we were talking about how setting the story and making this culture of these CEO celebrities is setting bad expectations for people coming into the market. A lot of what we talked about does kind of come down to expectations. Expectations with the sales team, expectations on a lot of like what your customer base was going to be. So I think we should probably talk about how you change expectations when your market is maturing, and maybe talk about. I have a personal thing that I'd also like to bring up.
Go.
So we'll do that. But first, let's mention our friends at Linux Academy. They help us keep this show going, and we appreciate them so much. And it's a service that constantly gets better. Check it out at linuxacademy.com/coders. You can sign up there for a free 7-day trial and support the show. It's a full-featured training library with everything you need to learn new skills and advance your career on all of the technologies built around Linux and the core essential technologies of Linux itself, with hands-on scenario-based labs that give you real experience on their servers. They have full-time instructors, human beings that are there to help you when you need them, and they have a course scheduler that when you're really busy is very, very valuable. But check this out. It's a big, big launch over at Linux Academy. In the month of April, they're launching 70 new courses, new challenges, and new learning activities. I knew this was coming. A little birdie had given me a hint, and they'd had some live streams. I kind of knew this was coming. So but to actually see it in writing, it just so underscores how great this company is and how they just keep getting bigger and better all the time. They've really established themselves as a legitimate training platform in the entire industry. So now Linux Academy on the resume looks really good. So that's extremely valuable too. That's why one of the things they've rolled out is public profiles. So as you go through the Linux Academy courseware and you complete different sections, there's essentially like a GitHub-style profile that shows the work you've completed. You could add that to the resume or link that to your employer, especially if you've got an employer that helps out with funding of the training. Oh, man, that is great. There's just so many great features at Linux Academy, including really the fact that they're just always adding new stuff, and they're always going back and adjusting the old stuff. Like, that's a pretty great feature all in itself. And then you bring in the hands-on labs where they spin up the servers on demand when you need them, and they have the human beings, and they got a community full of Jupiter Broadcasting members, and they've got offline study guides and lesson audio that you can just listen to with no internet at all. I mean, it's just, the whole package is just fantastic. And you can try it 7 days for free at linuxacademy.com/coders. That's linuxacademy.com/coders. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. That's linuxacademy.com/coders. All right, Mr. Dominic. So let's chat about adjusting expectations, because there is a theme here, and it's really busted expectations. You know, it's almost like misinformed expectations, I guess. Or what would be another way to put it would be really just sort of being naive expectations. That's probably it. It's naive expectations. Because you don't know until you do it.
You don't know until you do it, right.
So how do you change them, especially when the market's changing, that you're trying to serve?
So there's multiple types of expectations, right? Like, I had the expectation that you are doing something with like 3 people. So, just, multiply by X, and that's how big you can be, but run the exact same process. No. Right?
Yeah.
That's a bad expectation.
Oh, man.
Nine women can't have a baby in a month, right? It's the old mythical man-month problem. Yeah,
I guess it seems so obvious when you say it. It seems so obvious. But, man, I made the same mistake. I know, and not to make it about me, but I know I made that same mistake, and I'm only really just kind of recently figuring it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, this would be interesting to ask you, because one thing I didn't anticipate was I find when you hit certain size thresholds that you actually have to take your process back down to the studs and just say, does this still make sense? And let me give you just like a really quick example. Originally, our process for bug tracking was text files in Dropbox.
Sure.
What the hell? First there was just me, right? So it didn't really matter. And our process for customer communications was email, which I still stand by email for like formal communications.
Yeah.
But when you have like multiple people on a project and somebody doesn't get CC'd and then asks the same question and the customer gets mad because you're bothering them, like there's all kinds of like ways where things break down. Like I find, 1 to 3 people runs one way, but once you add that like 4th or 5th person, somehow you actually lose efficiency, right? Like the person's not additive. I mean, they're obviously additive, but they're not like 100% additive, right? Because someone now has to manage the process.
It's managing. It's getting more people to buy off on the idea. It's additional people who have opinions on how things should be done. It's other people who may have other things that are primary motivators in their life, and work not being one of them. I mean, there's all kinds, right? And I'm just listing a few examples. That's just the culture begins to change, and sometimes for the better when you bring people on, and sometimes for a lot better for quite a while. It's not always a bad thing, but it does fundamentally change the team dynamic. And when that happens, the work changes. The product is a reflection of the team, of the business itself.
Well, there's an old quote about, I think it was about Microsoft, that like every software company ends up coding according to their corporate structure.
Right. Oh, right. What is that?
Which I found was basically true.
I'll Google that for a second.
Yeah, you should Google that, because I was very. You see, part of the problem was at that point in my life, I had never actually met like a good project manager, so I did not believe they were necessary. And it turns out that devs, in general, except for like super senior ones, aren't the best PMs.
Yeah.
Particularly, and we did have like one problem where our QA guy like hated one of the developers and vice versa. My dogs also hated him. So at some point, like by 2014, I think we'd adopted Jira, because that's when we started using Atlassian. And I at one point had to like intervene just on the ridiculous tickets that were being opened. Like it would be like whatever functionality does not work, right? But only for this one guy. So that kind of crap really, really took me by surprise. That ended up not working out.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess I can't find the quote, but maybe somebody listening can send it in or something, because I know exactly what you're talking about. And so I want to go back just to, you said every now and then you feel like you need to strip it down to the studs and sort of reevaluate. Doesn't that seem like in a way, like you're always going to be hitting the reset button. You're always going to be losing momentum in the direction. You'll always be sort of resetting to zero, which, I mean, not always the case, but I do feel like we've done that a bit. Like when we've been restructuring some of the shows, changing things up a bit, and like, TechSnap is not as big of a show as it used to be anymore. It's growing in a new direction, but it used to be a much larger show. When Alan and I did TechSnap as a video show, it probably got 20,000 more downloads. That started that.
Really?
Yeah, I mean that went away before we rebooted TechSnap. TechSnap is now, the rebooted TechSnap is doing better than the TechSnap it's replacing, because it's just that format just wasn't working for folks. So it's going in the right direction, but it did feel a lot like hitting the reset button completely and just sort of, I mean, kind of taking like the DNA of the original product and going in a new direction. I don't know how to put it, but it didn't entirely feel clean, because it's like if I'm spending a ton of effort, boy, I'd love to be building on top of something, building on a success. And in a way I was, but not how I actually envisioned things would be when I was coming into doing this job, like coming into being a businessman. I pictured things going a little differently. I don't disagree with your statement, but it feels a bit like failure in itself, like having to strip everything down and restart.
I don't see that in itself as failure. I mean, I think when you're small, you have very few advantages, and being nimble and being able to pivot quickly.
That is a great point.
Your primary strength. Like let me use JB as an example.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right, I know you agree with that, right? And like so, but you have a point. I don't think your objection is wrong. I think it's just a different way of looking at it. Like, let me give you an example. I could have, instead of doing what I did and trying to like expand so like I had this idea that instead of just doing iOS development, we would do iOS, Android, and the web backend, right? Kind of to like be a one-stop shop. There is a very strong argument that I'm still not sure I buy, but like people have said this to me in the past, that what I ought to have done was just hardcore double down on iOS, right? Done iOS only. And I do think fooling around with the hybrid stuff wasn't great. Not because hybrid's necessarily bad. I do think hybrid is good for a lot of things, but I was focusing on hybrid for the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah, I follow.
And I could have positioned myself in the original company as just a pure 100% Apple, iOS, Mac expertise shop. I didn't do it.
Do you think it was because it would have required you to be ruthless and fire people and drop clients and things like that? Or was it because you didn't think it was the future?
So that's actually something I want to get into. The reason I didn't do it was because I was stupid, right? Now, whether it was... I don't want to get in an argument, because I know this is the comments we're going to get people saying, like, whether Apple and iOS is a good thing I should have targeted or not. Let's say any technology, right? Let's ignore that. Let's say I didn't do it because I didn't understand, kind of getting back to that telling your story stuff we were making fun of before. I didn't understand that the story I ended up telling was, we can do a full stack solution, but we are no different than anybody else, other than being very cheap, which was stupid. But the ruthless thing, it's funny because I actually wanted to put that in here. I have a line, as you see in the doc, that says there really are no bad guys, right? Like, I did not intend to fail, right? I did not intend to have to lay people off. My clients, who some of which creep scope and cause me problems, were not like out to get me, right? Like, no one wakes up and says, I want to contract with the shop and then I want to change my mind in the middle of the project just to be a jerk, right?
Yeah.
Like, those people don't exist. I mean, I guess maybe if they were like mentally ill, maybe there is someone like that, but I do think I was afraid of being perceived as an asshole and as a crook that I didn't be ruthless enough. I could have, and this is the part that kind of chaps my ass to this day. I could have prevented this. I would have had to fire or lay off almost everybody doing customer support in one fell swoop. Right? It would have just been kind of like a Night of the Long Knives type move. I would have had to very aggressively gone to customers who had fixed big contracts that were in distress because they changed their mind or whatever, scope reasons, and just thrown down a gauntlet. See, I was a little afraid of conflict, I think, actually, is what happened. And I needed to just say, here's the deal. You're above your scope. You can either pay more or not, right? And I should have just been, I should have been more ruthless. But not in like a conniving, mean way, but...
In a selfish way, in a way.
So one thing I didn't understand...
And hold on, before you go. A selfish way is not necessarily bad. It's your business.
Right. And like, you know, a relationship, a business relationship has to be mutually beneficial. Like, this is one thing I try to explain to people when they tell me, like, that they, like, just, like, don't have budget to do anything or whatever, or, you know, you always hear about somebody who feels they got ripped off by a web developer, right? I hear it all the time. And what I tell them is, well, I'm sure you're telling me the truth, but the way I view things is, you know, the relationship has to work for all parties. So you can't try to, like a common thing is, well, I want this other thing that may or may not be in the scope, and I'm not going to accept the work if you don't do it. My answer to that today is, okay, that's nice, right? Like, seriously, great. And if you want, I'm not giving you anything back, so sue me. And I've also resolved that by not doing fixed bids, right? I'm getting rid of my last one today, actually. So it is not wrong, right, as a vendor to protect yourself. It is also, I would say to any of you who are like contracting with dev shops, if the dev shop begins to lose money, they're just like not going to be able to do your project, right?
I wonder how. Yeah, that's true.
Right,
okay,
like
continue.
You can't. You actually don't want, and this is something I learned. You never want to rip off a customer, right? You never want to like overbid and pull the wool over their eyes.
Yeah,
which is never going to happen anyway because there's always scope creep. But the customer, you shouldn't think of it as a transaction, because really everything is going to need to be maintained. And in the best case, if you, and this is something I didn't do, but I should have, if someone snows you on a project, like gets you to do, like we had one guy who got us to do like 500 hours of work for 150 hours because we misbid something. The right thing to do would have been to just like not do any more work for him, right?
Yeah.
Like that is the right answer, even if he's in a lurch because he needs something changed in production. Because unfortunately, I guess I do have to be a ruthless prick. I don't know what to tell you. Right?
Yeah, I think
like that is a lesson I learned.
I think that's. I think I've looked back at some things in some of my business choices where I've gone, if I would have, followed my gut back then, I would have had to make a lot of really, to the other people, would have seemed like heartless decisions. And I think I didn't want to be heartless. I think that's part of it, but I think also it was combined with conflict avoidance, which played a big role. And I do think that perhaps that's something that people perhaps also underappreciate, is how the tendency for us to want to avoid conflict can make us put off decisions that I think maybe sometimes that's why people who have some social disorders are better at running businesses, because they don't have that filter. They don't have that anxiety about conflict. They just say, this isn't working, you're fired. I mean, I don't know how else to think about it, because when I think about some of the decisions I would have had to have made, they are so gut-wrenchingly mean or difficult that it, to me, was almost just worth having the business not be as successful. And I think in part of it's because of the amount of conflict it would require. And other times it's just simply because I guess I don't want to have to be that ruthless to get the job done. I think that plays a role too, and that's sort of when I get to that to that fork in the road. So far, every time I've chosen to take the less ruthless fork. But I look back and I go, I do believe had I been on 3 or 4 occasions, I wouldn't call them regrets, but upon reflection, had I gone with my more aggressive instinct, I think I'd probably be in a better financial position, or maybe the business would be in a different position. I don't know, but it does sometimes rattle around in my head as I'm on a long drive or something. And it's, I think, something that people going into business need to fully appreciate, how sometimes what's holding you back and holding your revenue, your company back, and all of it is you, and the fact that you are a bit of a wuss when it comes to conflict, because it's kind of human nature, I think, for a lot of us.
Yeah, I've had to learn how to kind of embrace conflict, and it doesn't happen very often, but there has, and I'm wondering if this is your experience too. There has never been a case, and I've been doing this now for 10 years, when I saw a deal going bad and not going head on and saying, this isn't going right, we need to fix it, this is a process to fix it. We're avoiding that and sometimes very heated conversation, right? Because people, oftentimes fixing things, you have to turn around and say, listen, you asked for 10 things, I need you to write them all up in a document, date it, and then we can, negotiate on what you're going to get. Yeah. Particularly if you're doing fixed scope work. In any case where I didn't do something like that, though, which again was very uncomfortable, and I mean, there was a time when one guy was yelling at me, really, very, very uncomfortable. But when I don't do it, or when I hadn't done it, always a worse outcome for everyone.
Yep, I 100% agree.
And it also helps you separate people who, because see, part of project management is the client has to manage their own side of the project, right? And it's really telling that, I've worked with lots of different types of organization, lots of different types of people. The ones who work with you and understand that it's a collaborative process always get the best bang for their buck and the better outcome. The ones who think that they're trying to get everything they can, even if those projects ship, it's not good, right? Because you have no incentive to work with them again. Mm-hmm. And if they need something, you probably are just going to, and this is another thing, learning to say no, right? You know what, this isn't right for us. That's again another very conflict-rich area.
Yeah, especially if you're in a position where you need the money or you need that work, or you got somebody that's their type of work and they're sitting there idle. So boy, wouldn't it be great to bring that on right now?
I've done it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a challenging position. And I think it comes back to something that I'm appreciating a lot more in the last, I'd say, 3 months, but I've been working my way there for 2 years, is focus. And sort of whittling it down. And every time I feel like I focus in, I realize, oh man, this is a lot deeper, and I got to focus in more. And I think in that process, it sort of necessitates a bit of ruthlessness, which I am getting more acquainted with as we go through some of these changes. But it's still sort of outside my comfort zone, which I think is a good thing. But I've been outside this comfort zone for a few months now, and I'm okay, I'm ready to kind of bring things back and just get things regular again, because now I figured out what the focus is, and I know kind of what the future direction is. But there's so many ripple effects from the changes that the comfort zone is still quite a ways out, I think, which is probably good for now, but it's getting a little tiring.
Yeah, I mean, although, I don't like the word ruthless. I really think it's more assertive, right?
Yeah, okay.
Because ruthless implies a level of burn the forest down.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is that. I think the reason why, because I feel like you have to almost think of it as being selfish in a way but it's selfish for the business, not yourself. It's you know what I mean? And I don't...
All right, well, let me give you a hypothetical then.
Okay.
If at the end, or Q3, the end of Q3 2014, things really took the turn, right?
Yeah.
If I had been more ruthless, as you say, I could have saved the jobs of at least 7 or 8 people, theoretically, right? If I had turned on projects that weren't either paying on time or had some sort of issue like that, or any of the things that were just not being done right, maybe let go of people who weren't producing at a high enough level, I definitely could have saved people's jobs, right? Is that really ruthless, or is that... You see what I mean? Ultimately,
it's not always ruthless. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Sometimes it's, yeah.
Okay. And one thing I you'll find this funny, I think. People are really good at pretending to be offended by things that they just don't care, right? I have found that like there are some pretty sleazy people in the world that will just like act like super offended, like you're like telling them they have to pay more for scope creep is like you just like killed their dog.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, and you just have to stop caring. Is I guess my thing here.
Or reset your filter on people's reactions, I suppose. Sort of what I've been thinking about that a little bit too recently. It was like a lot of people just throw stuff at me, and these last few weeks I've just been like, oh, you guys, oh gosh, here we go again, and it's like everything because it's a freak out culture these days, and it's just getting worse.
There are people for which that's a process, right? Like I no longer a client, this guy, but he had a way that every conversation had to begin with some like outlandish accusation.
Oh man. To
And
sort of
you
put
just
you
had to-
on the defensive, so that was that like a negotiation tactic here?
Right. So I figured out after like 6 months of it that he's just trying to put us on the defensive.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's just trying to like
he's trying to, yeah.
rattle our cage.
Oh man, that's stressful too.
And so what I started doing was answering the phone and saying, "You're right, I did it." Wouldn't say hello. Didn't even let him talk.
Like you're onto
how
him.
does he respond?
He knows you're onto him. Yeah.
And that stopped that. So,
That's funny. Well,
yeah.
so now what? Now, I mean, what's next? So so it seems like you've been reflecting on this. Are you incorporating this into future work? I mean, like, where's this go now? That's what
Yeah,
I've been trying to figure out.
So I've been through very similar to what you've been doing at JP, actually, a process of, I would definitely say trimming, trying to find focus. You know, relocating to Florida was I think more of a disruption than I would have hoped. But yeah, I'm trying to focus on one vertical, which is aerospace, and hopefully get lean. I think one of the disadvantages we both have is that the technology market is always moving very quickly.
Yes.
Well,
It's an advantage as well.
It is an advantage, right? I've also decided that I basically need to target like the tech visionaries within these large organizations who want to try something new, and it's just because of how small we are right now, it's not worth it to try to go for what Jeffrey Moore would call the pragmatists, which are basically the people who want you to have like an account rep and all kinds of like
All the infrastructure around that.
yeah, I didn't even know all the boring crap, right? Excel sheets, things like that.
Yeah, the management layer stuff that makes everybody comfy and helps defer responsibility, but also tends to lead to very larger contracts. But it's like there's like a give and take there.
Well, there's a give and take, and,
Yeah.
and in the vertical I'm working in, it's such that we're always like subcontracting or co-subcontracting, so it's a little different. I mean, I've decided no more fixed bids, period, for any reason.
Attaboy. Proud of you.
I actually ended on Sunday a long-time white label subcontracting deal because it just things were getting a little too uncomfortable, and it just wasn't it wasn't in the direction I need to be going in.
Times be changing for you, Mr. Dominic.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's a
and
thing.
hey, if I go broke, I'll come with you and Lady Jukes, and we'll
I'm so down for that. We'll just start like Mike and Chris's podcasting. You know what we could do is
just pub crawl.
we should roll the podcasting industry like outsourced development has rolled the development industry. We could do it, Mike. You know what? We could go in there and we could just, because all of these companies are going to want to do marketing blitzes on podcasts and YouTube videos, and we'll just outsource all of it. We'll pretend like we're part of those companies. We'll totally white label the whole thing. I think you and I could nail this. So that'll be our plan B, okay?
I actually think we could, and I'm shocked that that's not already a thing. 'Cause that
It
sounds
is,
like,
it is kind of becoming a thing, but
Well,
I think we still have a
yeah.
chance. We have a chance still.
holy crap, that's if anybody's looking to like start an agency, there you go. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Dominic, where do you want people to go throughout the week?
go to themadbotter.com and follow me at Dumanuco.
I like that advice. That's strong, good advice. Check me out on the Twitter at ChrisLAS. Go check out the TechSnap program. Great companion, really, to this show, techsnap.systems over there. And then join us live. You can get our live time at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. Oh, and give us some emails. Let's fill that mailbag for next week's episode. We didn't do any emails. Give us some thoughts on whatever we talked about today. Coder.show/contact. In fact, Coder.show for all of the show's resources, including subscribe links to everything we talked about today, and more. Coder.show. Thanks for joining us. See you back here next Monday. There we go. I think that turned out really great. That's some some shit people would charge for it in some places. They're in there.
Oh, I hope it was helpful. And guess what? My MacBook Pro keyboard died during the show.
Oh no.
I can't seem to get it.
Well, that should be a $700 fix. So you know what we didn't get to, which we could talk.
This,
maybe we should talk about next week. Is the iMac or the Mac Pro news, which this is not good.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I read the thing and I'm like, this sounds very strange.
It sounds like they have no idea what the hell they're doing.
I have a Dell on my desk here. It's a black box with lots of memory and a graphics card.
It's like,
do that.
Do you know how bad? You know how? And I know they're never going to do this, but I guarantee you, if they just rev the cheese grater, put the latest Xeons, and latest RAM, latest GPUs, and a bunch of SSD storage in that thing, and left PCI Express slots in there, they'd sell off the shelves as fast as they could make them. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't. It's a whole long conversation, but I don't get why Apple like insists on being.
Oh, our titles. I think JBot took a. Man, I tell you what, this JBot thing is a Ruby app. I didn't realize how often it crashes because Rikai would always just go in there and restart it. But now that I'm the one managing the web app, it fucking crashes all the time. So.
Have you heard the good news of Kotlin?
Yeah, I don't know what to do about it.
Ruby uses a lot of memory.
I may have to launch like a community initiative to revamp JBot. It is open source, but I didn't realize it was so crashy. So I have to like SSH into the droplet all the time and kick the process over. So I didn't grab any titles. I put in Naive Expectations. I saw other couple that I liked though, so it doesn't have to be that.
That doesn't sound bad.
Let's see.
I'm booting into Windows. This is just like.
Oh man. I have to go into. I've been putting off going into Windows for a few days because I have like a Garmin GPS that can only be updated through Windows, and it's like definitely time to be. It's like got really.
I have a contract I have to do. It's all Windows. So.
Do you use Windows 10 still for that?
I'm installing Windows 10 right now.
Did you? You know, the other thing we didn't talk about is they released the Windows 3 file manager as open source, and it runs on Windows 10. It's actually kind of fun. I saw that and I was like, oh, that's adorable. Yeah, they MIT'd the old the WinFile or whatever it was called from Windows 3.1, and they put it out there.
That's kind of awesome, actually.
And they made sure it's Windows 10 compatible, and they've added some new features and support for it.
You know, VisiCalc will still run.
Jesus.
Right? Like,
that's what a lot of people are saying. So I think this is a conversation for next week too. Probably is that is actually kind of neat.
And we can see how pissed off I am after a week in Windows.
Naive Expectations. Oh, that's interesting. I saw another one in here that was pretty good, but now I'm not finding it. Do you want to just do Naive? I guess. Somebody submitted a good one, and now I feel like such a jerk. I'm sorry. I thought JBot was working because it was given live times and stuff. So, oh man, you know what? No, JBot is working. I think I didn't start the show. I think it's my bad. I apologize, guys. So does that mean the ones that are up there are just right? They're just on filter? Oh, okay. So we have good news. We did actually capture the titles. They're just labeled they're on filter titles. Stale startup, CEO constraints. So you think this is really what you get. Naive Expectations. No bad guys, only. Oh, that was what it was. No bad guys, only survivors.
I like that a lot, actually. But is that too long?
It is really long, but it is pretty good. It's the way I title it in the podcast catchers now. It's just the number : and then the title, and then it's Coder Radio subtitled. So let's go with it. Let's go with it.
We have, and you know what? Everybody loves chaotic.
Yeah, it's nice to see chaotic in there, giving us some titles still. So we'll go.
Oh
with
my God!
What happened?
What the hell?
Oh, Windows.
Windows install screens are like. This is what I would tie you to a chair if I needed to like torture you for information.
Yeah,
Who decided on this neon shade of blue?
Have you gotten to the part where it starts just loudly talking to you? That might be after you reboot. At a certain point, Cortana just comes on and starts like announcing the installer to you. But now they recently added in like the Fall Creators Update the ability to tell her to shut up. But when they first launched Windows 10, you couldn't tell her to shut up. You know,
I might take a picture of this and tweet it. I have a 27-inch high-def monitor.
Oh man,
with a little spinning thing.
That'll get real traction. I tell you that stuff about Windows 10. That aspect of it's such a shit show. It's unbelievable.
By the way, bold color choice considering the blue screen of death. I just want to say that.
Yeah. No, I feel like they're trying to re-own it. I think that's intentional. It's weird. Yeah.
So I guess I have to wait.
You should totally. Actually, you should tweet that so then I can grab it for next week's show and throw it in the doc. Because you know me, I like to stalk you on Twitter.
Wait, what the hell is it asking me? Do you want to fully clean your drive? When you remove your files, you can also.
What? Do you want to clean your drive? Is that what it's
I want-
saying? That is some
Something
dangerous.
bad. Dell. See, I had Linux on this, and I need to because
yeah.
Windows is stupid. Yeah, I have
Yeah.
to do Windows.
That is a thing, dude. That is a thing. That is a thing.
Thank you, EUFI.
Yeah.
UFI, whatever.
Uh-huh.
All right, recovering PC, 2%. Another great use of screen real estate. You're
Recovering
not
PC.
recovering because you're not there. You're you're a USB thumb drive.
It's
of
like
the- okay.
It sounds like you're recovering from sort of like Linux bender or something. Like you're recovering.
Right, like you know what? The Mormons came to my door, handed me a pamphlet.
Told you
Have
about the
heard
good word.
news of Windows 10, right? This is going to be a rough couple months. I think I can already feel it.
Yeah, although you know what you remember go back. You should go back to our tips before because I think we linked to that like that better terminal and the chocolate package manager. Those things help.
That's true. That might make it suck.
And
less.
there is
watch
the-
I end up watch I end up converting it. We could do the Windows Action.
There is
show.
the Ubuntu. There is the Ubuntu subsystem. You know, I tell you what. After Linux Fest Northwest, if this studio isn't 100%, I am going to have a real crisis of Linux faith because my systems, you know, like even my Plasma desktop now has started to have some problems. Like I don't have a single
my
Linux
God.
box in the studio right now that isn't having an issue. And they've only been in here for a year, and they're all individually having problems. I've replaced one of them. Like it has not been a good year. Now, it isn't much worse than a Hackintosh. It's about Hackintosh level. So it's like I've been here before, but I think if I had the money and had different systems in here, or was maybe running Windows, maybe it would be better. I don't know. Because one system I converted to Windows 7 from Linux, the one you and I talk on all the time, and this has been way better since we moved it to Windows. It's just been way better.
Yeah, I'm.
That's
I
bad,
was
man.
actually. I was sort of kidding, but I wouldn't be shocked if I ended up like compromising because
Yeah.
most of the work I'm doing is very Windows focused.
I
anyway right now.
never in my life ever feel like I will have this crisis about Linux on the server or like on like Raspberry Pi devices or like those kinds of like, you know, device workloads. But right now on the desktop, I gotta say, like I do have some systems that are still rock solid, but the ones that matter the most, the ones here in the studio, are my most flaky. It's just a
I've
bummer.
had tremendous keyboard issues, and not just that I don't like it with my Mac Pro. Like they've had to like take the keyboard out and put a new one in twice.
Yeah.
And I think we're going on third here.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
just
my
horrible.
Galago Pro is back to screaming like a banshee every time I run it. So I'm
man.
trying to give up on that.
And then you see Apple doesn't have any idea to do with how to make a system for pro users. They've got.
Yeah.
they've got-
Did you see the Mac Rumors post about that?
Yeah, the fact that they're hiring these people to come in and make music so they can. I mean, give me a fucking break. Jesus,
Yeah.
this is bad. And so, like,
They could save Windows. Poor Terry Myerson got fired at the wrong time.
I mean, I really feel like Windows is a technical shit show, and Windows 10 is like the best lipstick they've ever put on that pig. But I don't know if it's maybe just the volume of users they have or the operation of Microsoft. Like the Windows product here in the studio has been way more reliable than these other systems, and it's given me like this. Oh shit! Am I gonna become a Windows guy at least on the desktop, and at least in my studio? I don't think I'd replace my systems up in my office.
Honestly, like what I think is going to end up happening is I'll probably keep this Dell on Windows and just run Linux in a VM, right, for specialized work. Like doing Ruby on Windows is a freaking nightmare.
That's just you know when you want to experience the Linux desktop and you want to have an opinion on it. That's not the.
Well, I also have like.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's true. I do too. Yeah, I guess putting my machines on Windows in the studio doesn't mean I'm not using Linux anymore. It just would mean.
Well, and when you're doing like embedded programming in C#, unfortunately, Windows tends to be the best platform to do that.
I'm just not 100% convinced for my workload that Windows will be any better. It may just be a different set of problems, is what I suspect.
Well, I'm not convinced that like my years of bash scripts are going to actually work correctly.
Oh yeah, right. Oh, boy, I would love to try some of my old bash scripts on Windows subsystem. That would be really interesting. I guess that would be nice if this machine you and I are talking on had the Windows subsystem. That would be kind of nice.
Yeah, I'll do the challenge. I mean, I did it once before, but I have to do it anyway. So let's see if I could, without modifying too much of my workflow, how efficient I am on Windows, because my Mac is going to the Genius Bar, it looks like.
That's so awful.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right, Mr. Dominic. Well, have a good week, and
You too.
I will talk to you next Monday.
Talk to you Monday.
All right, bye-sies. Okay, chat room. So I'm out now. I'll be back tomorrow for Linux Unplugged with Mr. Wes, and then you got Ask Noah coming up in the afternoons, just right after us. So you got your Linux sandwich tomorrow, and then Wednesday, I think BSD Now might be pre-recorded. I'm not sure. They might just be way pre-recorded, so they may be live. The calendar should know. But the Unfiltered show will be starting around 3:30 my time on Wednesday. So you got Lup and Ask Noah tomorrow, and then you got the Unfiltered show on Wednesday. Maybe BSD Now. You'll have a new episode either way. And then later on in the week, you'll have TechSnap and perhaps a new episode of Tech Talk Today. Thanks for joining us.